Hey guys, tonight we begin with the creak of wooden floorboards under cold bare feet, and the soft rustle of a coal fire slowly waking to life. The year is 1906. The milk is delivered by hand, and the smell of soot clings to everything, like a second skin. Outside, the sky is a quiet gray. Not quite dawn, not quite night, and a curtain of chimney smoke settles over the rooftops like a woolen shawl. If you're still settling in, maybe leave a quiet like on this video and consider subscribing only. If it feels right, in the corner of a small kitchen, a kettle hums gently as it begins to warm. A child shifts under a heavy blanket in a shared bed, curling tighter toward warmth that isn't quite enough. The walls don't keep the cold out, not really. They just hold it in a little more politely. In the hallway, boots stand like sentinels, muddy, worn, dependable. They've known rain, coal dust, and silence. They'll know it again tomorrow. Let me know where you're tuning in from. What time is it where you are? This isn't a story about queens or coronations. You won't hear the rattle of sabers or see the shine of marble halls. Instead, you'll hear the dull scrape of a spoon in a porridge bowl, the muffled thump of laundry against a washboard, and the whispered gossip exchanged over a low fence. It's a story of ordinary days and unremarkable hours, the kind that history forgets, but sleep remembers. Here, in the quiet hush of an Edwardian morning, families rise not with fanfare, but with duty. A cracked bowl, a patched apron, a fire that needs coaxing, and children that need shoes. The beauty, if you can call it that, isn't loud. It's stitched into routine, hidden in corners, passed down through hands that don't ask for applause. Now, tuck in close, as we quietly step into the rhythm of another day, not in a palace, but in a narrow, rented terrace where warmth was earned and silence meant survival. The morning doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in slowly, through the cracks in the window pane, through the gaps in the floorboards, through the heavy fabric of a hand-stitched curtain that never quite covers the cold. It arrives not in light, but in gray, a soft, stubborn fog that presses against the brick and glass, as if the outside world wants to come in and borrow a little warmth. Inside, the stove is already murmuring, not crackling, not roaring, just a gentle hum, like an old friend breathing slowly beside you. It took an hour to coax it to life. Yesterday's ashes rearranged, paper crumpled with care, and coal placed like small black prayers into the belly of the firebox. It smells like every Edwardian morning has always smelled. Faint smoke, soap still drying on the sink, and the unmistakable musk of boiled flannel from yesterday's wash. In the corner, the kettle shifts. Not boiling yet, just thinking about it. Beside it, a chipped mug waits patiently, holding the memory of every tea that's ever been poured into it. On the floor, footsteps arrive, light at first, then heavier. A child dragging a blanket, still warm from the shared bed, still half asleep. The floor is cold enough to bite, but the child says nothing. No one does. Morning isn't for speaking. It's for moving, quietly, purposefully, as if noise might disturb the delicate balance of things, and the whole day would crack like an overbaked crust. The mother is already at the table, fingers wrapped around. A wooden spoon, stirring something that passes for porridge. Not sweet, not spiced, just hot. Hot is enough. She doesn't look up when the child enters, but there's a softness in her silence that feels like welcome. Her dress is layered and faded, her apron damp in places where the kettle splashed, and the sleeves rolled just far enough to show the pink, chapped skin beneath. The windows fog up from inside as the fire grows braver. Outside, a milk cart creaks past, its driver wrapped like a parcel in scarves and gloom. The milk itself is not warm, but it's fresh, and that's something. In the scullery, a second child tries to wash yesterday's cups with hands still. Stiff from sleep, the water is cold, of course, and the cloth smells faintly of mildew, but no one complains. Complaining wastes warmth. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below, and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The morning is both heavy and light. Heavy with the weight of all that must be done before the sun truly arrives. Light in the sense that everything is still possible. There's no yelling yet, no doors slamming, no soot on shirts or tears on cheeks. Just steam and silence, and the occasional clink of a spoon against a pot that's too thin for such ambitions. There's something sacred about this hour, not holy in the way of churches, but reverent in its own domestic way. Every movement is familiar, every sound accounted for. The scraping chair, the kettle sighing, the broom bristling gently against the kitchen tiles, as someone makes a half-hearted attempt at tidying before the day begins in earnest. The father hasn't come down yet. He never does until the fire's hot and the tea is ready. His boots wait. Near the back door, mud dried into patterns only he could recognize. They've walked to the factory and back 100 times. They'll do it again today. No fuss, no drama, just motion. And still, no one hurries Dot in this Edwardian home. Speed isn't prized. Endurance is. The house isn't large. It's narrow, and leans slightly where the bricks have settled unevenly over time. The kitchen doubles as the dining room. The hallway, if it can be called that, is more of a polite gap between rooms. The air holds 1,000 unspoken things. Last night's soup, a child's whisper, the worry stitched into the lining of a coat that won't last another winter, Dot, and yet it's enough. The stove, now glowing, is a kind of hearth-bound heartbeat. Its warmth doesn't reach every room, but it gives the illusion that it might, and that's nearly the same thing. Someone has laid a cloth over the table, a thin one, frayed at the edges, but it makes the bread look less alone. There's no butter today, not yet. Maybe later, if there's anything left after errands. But the tea is strong, and that matters more. Outside, the fog has thickened. It swallows chimneys and hides cats. It makes the world seem smaller, closer, safer, like the house is all there is. And maybe, just for a moment, that's true. The morning stretches itself slowly. The porridge is served, not in bowls, but in whatever dishes are clean enough. The children eat without complaint, spoons clinking in uneven rhythm. The mother wipes a nose with her sleeve, presses a kiss to a temple, and smooths a collar, with fingers made rough by soap and time. There's love here, not in words, not even in gestures, just in presence, in quiet routine, in the way someone folds a blanket and lays it on a chair, in the way a cup is placed within reach already. Filled, Dot, as the clock ticks toward the hour when coats must be buttoned and boots laced, the kitchen begins to shift again. The warmth is already thinning. The kettle is cooling. The firewood stack is lower than it was yesterday. But for now, for this one short stretch of morning, everything holds, Dot, and that brings us to the next part of the day, where lace curtains flutter and the sounds of the street begin to seep into the home. Curious, familiar, and never quite as far away as they seem. The house does not have a front yard. Just 3 worn steps, a strip of cracked pavement, and a crooked iron railing that has rusted in silence for years. But the window above those steps, the one dressed in slightly yellowing lace, offers a view into the neighborhood like no book ever could. Behind that curtain, someone always watches, not in the way of spies or scandal seekers, more like how the sea watches the shore, noticing, absorbing, never interfering. The lace isn't really clean, but it's cared for, hand-washed, sun-dried, and stretched with care across the little wooden rod. It sways gently now in the morning breeze, a veil between domestic hush and urban rustle. Through it, you can see the world waking up, not all at once, but in bits and coughs. A door slams 3 houses down. The Cooper boy, likely late again. The milk cart clatters by, its wheels protesting every cobblestone with the grace of a tin drum. A woman across the way beats a rug against her windowsill, and for a moment, dust and sunlight dance together like old lovers. The streets speak in rhythms. Each sound, a note in the quiet music of the Edwardian neighborhood. Someone is chopping. Wood, not aggressively, just steadily, as if they're arguing politely with the log. A kettle screams faintly through an open window. 2 dogs bark, not out of rage, but routine. Even the pigeons sound tired this morning, cooing from there. Perch like old men remembering wars that never happened. Inside, a child peeks past the curtain's edge. Just a little, just enough to be scolded if caught. Their breath fogs the glass. The cold outside and the warmth inside meet here, at this pane, every morning in a truce of condensation. The child doesn't say anything. They're watching, but not for anything in particular. It's not what you're looking for that matters here. It's that you're looking at all. The street is both stage and mirror. Every neighbor a character. Every routine a script rehearsed 100 times. There's the Coleman, bent and smudged, leaving little hills of black beside doorsteps. He knocks once, always once. His boots leave behind echoes and footprints that will be swept away before noon, though the soot will linger in the cracks of the stone like whispered reminders. The postman comes next, slower, straighter, carrying the weight of unopened futures in his satchel. Most of the letters are bills. Some are invitations. Fewer are warm, but still they arrive. And their arrival means the day is moving, even if you aren't. Someone upstairs flushes a toilet, a modern thing, newly installed and still treated with suspicion by the older residents. It rattles the pipes and hums down the walls like a warning. The child giggles. The mother shushes them without turning. Hands busy wringing out a rag over the sink. If you listen closely, you'll hear the sounds that never leave. The clink of teacups on the sill, the distant church bell trying to assert order, the rattle of old glass in window frames, too tired to hold firm against the breeze. And yet, no one complains. The street, for all its filth and clamor, feels like an extension of the home. You could draw lines from door to door, curtain to curtain, and map out not just addresses but relationships. That man over there lent a wrench 2 winters ago. The girl, in the blue shawl, gave your youngest half her bun during a fevered summer. And the old woman who sweeps her doorstep 3 times. A day once lost a husband to a chimney collapse and never remarried. The stories aren't told out loud. They're carried in glances, in nods, in the way someone places a loaf on the windowsill, covered with a cloth, just long enough to cool and just close enough for a neighbor to smell. The lace curtain shifts again, caught in a gust. The child jumps back, as if the outside world might come through and pull them into its mouth. But it doesn't. It never does. It just hums and shuffles and drifts, like a tired parade that never ends. Inside, the fire crackles louder for a moment, protesting the draft. The mother tightens the sash at her waist and peers out too, just briefly. She notices the new scuff on the Coleman's cap. She notes the missing curtain at the milliner's house. She says nothing. In Edwardian life, noticing is a kind of survival. It's how you know who's fallen ill, who's taken in a lodger, who's gone a little longer without sugar than usual. The street doesn't speak in headlines, it murmurs, and only those who listen with quiet eyes can hear it. Behind her, the kettle hisses again. The stove has taken on a life of its own now, offering enough heat to encourage conversation, but not enough to loosen stiff fingers. The child is told to stop gawking, though gently. There's bread to slice, butter to ration, a morning to finish becoming. And yet, even as the tasks resume, the window remains, That strip of gloss, that square of lace, that little portal, it frames a world that's both close and unreachable. A world where neighbors aren't strangers, where silence is respected, where a woman beating dust from a rug is as significant as any parade. And the milkman, with his crooked cap and cracked hands, is as constant as sunrise. The child will grow. The street will change. But that window will always remember this version of the world. When life was lived in front of lace, through fog, and under the soundtrack of wheels, boots, birds, and breath dot. No one speaks of it, but everyone feels it. That thin line between inside and out. The curtain isn't just decoration. It's boundary. It's shield. It's invitation dot. And so, as the clatter continues and the house fills with the scent of toast gone slightly too brown, we step away from the window now. We turn toward the back room, where steam is already beginning to rise, for Saturday has arrived, and with it comes the ritual of bathing, not for luxury, not for pleasure, but for the preservation of something much harder to come by than comfort. Dignity. There is no bathroom, not really. Just a back room that used to be something else, a scullery, maybe, or a pantry, now half claimed by steam and buckets. The walls here sweat in winter. The windows stay fogged, no matter how hard you wipe them. And in the middle of it all sits a tin tub. Shallow, dented, and cold. It doesn't look like much. But today, it is a palace. The fire was lit hours ago. Not in a proper fireplace, but in the small iron range that sulks in the corner. Its flue coughing smoke with every wind gust. Water has been warming all morning. Kettle after kettle, ladled into the tub with steady hands. It never gets hot, only warmer than skin. The tub creaks softly as it accepts each new pour, as if remembering every back it's ever touched, every elbow that scraped its edge, every shiver that turned to a sigh. There are rules, of course. The smallest child goes first, always, then the next, and the next. By the time the father climbs in, the water is cloudy with a week's worth of toil. No one complains. This is not about indulgence. It's about renewal, about dignity earned. In steam and silence, the child doesn't splash. That's not allowed. The water is precious, boiled in batches and carried by hand, sloshed on stairs, rationed like sugar. There's a sponge, rough and crumbling, a bar of soap that smells, faintly of lavender, but mostly of lye, and a towel, warmed if you're lucky, still damp if you're not. There are no locks on the door, just knocks. And modesty is guarded not by privacy, but by glances averted and shirts held up like shields. The air thickens with steam until it feels like another skin. It hides the peeling wallpaper, the rust stains on the pail, the sagging ceiling where rain once got in and never properly left. And in this fog, a strange beauty takes root. Not beauty in the sense of glamour, but grace. Quiet, ordinary grace. A mother kneels beside the tub, her sleeves rolled, her knees aching. She hums a tune without realizing. Her hands are practiced. Quick, she does not scrub too hard. She does not linger. She is cleaning not just her child's body, but the week's invisible weight, the coal dust, the classroom shamus, the splinters from street games, the small cruelties children carry and do not name. Behind her, a towel hangs on the back of a chair. Beside it, fresh underclothes laid out in careful folds. The shirt is patched, the socks are mismatched, but they are clean. And that makes them Sunday best. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The water cools quickly, so the process moves fast. One out, one in. Towels exchanged like batons in a quiet race against chill. A boy flinches as the sponge brushes a scraped knee. A girl frowns as she lifts her arm and sees how thin it's become. No one talks about these things. The bath is not a time for talk. It is a time for breathing, for bending, for warming the parts of you that don't get warmed during the week. Knees, toes, backs of ears, the very bones of the neck. It is where silence is not awkward, but sacred. Sometimes there is laughter, the kind that escapes like steam from under the lid. A joke told by the eldest, a slip of the soap, a shared memory from a better week. But mostly there is rhythm. Scrub, rinse, wrap. Scrub, rinse, wrap. Like a song no one sings, but everyone knows. And when the last child steps out, cheeks pink and hair wet, the mother sinks back for a moment and simply breathes. She doesn't bathe today. There's not enough water. There never is. Maybe tomorrow, if the kettle hasn't cracked. If the coal stretches just a little further. The father waits his turn. He doesn't say much. He never does. His hands are raw from work, his back shaped by long hours and short stools. But when he lowers himself into the tin, the tub does not creak with complaint. It knows him. It holds him. He closes his eyes, just for a moment. And in that moment, he is not a factory man, not a tenant, not a name in a ledger. He is just a man in warm water, exhaling steam and listening to his family move behind the curtain. The children dry off and dress, shirts buttoned wrong, hair tousled, socks half on, but they smell like soap. Their skin is pink. Their eyes are brighter. They gather near the stove, wrapped in old blankets, sipping tea from cups that have never matched. The floor is wet. The walls drip. The tub is heavy with used water. But the room feels lighter, as if something unseen has been washed away. Later, the water will be scooped out and poured into the drain in the alley. Steam will rise between the cobblestones and vanish. The tub will be turned on its side to dry. The towels will be hung near the fire, catching what little heat remains, and the room will fall silent again. No more splashes. No more laughter. Just the faint echo of a ritual completed. A week rinsed clean, at least on the surface. Bathing, in this world, is not about vanity. It is about control. About reclaiming a little softness in a life that rarely allows it. It is proof that you still care enough to try. The tub will wait. It always does. Waiting for the next Saturday, the next pot of water, the next child with cold toes and shy eyes. And so, as the room cools and the blankets tighten and the night begins to stretch its fingers across the rooftops, we leave the bath behind. We step instead into the next quiet labor of Edwardian life, where fabrics are chosen not for fashion, but for warmth, where the act of dressing is not simple, but ceremonial. Because next comes the corset, the collar, the layers of modesty and message, and all the quiet weight of what it means to be dressed properly for the world beyond the door. Dressing is not a single act. It is a series of negotiations between comfort and expectation, between warmth and propriety, between the body you have and the life you're supposed to wear over it. In Edwardian homes, clothing is never just fabric. It is identity. It is armor. It is prayer stitched in cotton and bone. The day begins not with trousers and jackets, but with petticoats, layers upon layers, built not for luxury, but for survival. Against cold, against judgment, against the shape of things you're not supposed to show. The underthings go on first. Chemise, stockings, drawers tied with ribbon that has frayed but not failed. The petticoat, stiff from too many washes and too little starch, is pulled up carefully, settled like a curtain across the hips. And then the corset. It is not cruel, not yet. It is just necessary. A tightening, a correction. The laces pull slowly. No one cries out. No one winces. The body is taught to yield early, to obey the line, the silhouette, the unspoken rules. A mother pulls the strings with care. Not too tight. Just enough. It's not punishment. It's preparation. The girl being laced stares at the wall. She is not thinking of beauty. She is thinking of breath. Dresses are chosen based on mood and stain. The best one is saved for Sunday, or a visit, or tragedy. Today, it's the brown wool one, the one with the repaired seam under the sleeve and the collar that won't lie flat. A brooch hides the stubborn spot. Jewelry always tells a little lie. In the corner. A boy buttons his shirt with thick fingers. Still damp from the bath. The buttons are chipped and mismatched. One is sewn with blue thread because that's what was left. He doesn't mind. He has other things to worry about. His socks, for instance. One slides down more than the other. He tightens the garter and pretends not to care. The mirror is a shared thing. Cracked, cloudy. It has hung on that wall for longer than any child can remember. It does not flatter. It tells the truth, softly. In its reflection, a girl smooths her braid, unsure if it's tight enough. A boy wipes a smudge from his chin. Their mother passes behind them like a ghost, already dressed, already done, already exhausted. Hats wait by the door. So do gloves. Even the children wear gloves. Not because it's cold, but because bare hands are statements of poverty, of labor, of looseness. Gloves are dignity. Even when they're full of holes, shoes are last. They are never quite dry. They never quite fit. They are polished or at least wiped down, even when the soles flap like tongues and the laces are knotted beyond reason. In Edwardian life, shoes carry your class more loudly than your voice ever could. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. No one rushes. But no one dawdles either. Dressing is its own kind of ritual. Wordless, repetitive, nearly holy. There's a quiet intimacy in the way one child helps another with a button. In the way a mother brushes lint from a sleeve without saying anything. In the way a father checks his cuffs, silently judging whether the fray is too visible today. Outside, footsteps pass. Someone's heels click too confidently. Someone's child is crying. The world is always dressing too, just beyond the door, putting on its voice, its rules, its layers. Inside, the children line up for inspection. Not formally, not like soldiers, but the instinct is there. Are your socks even? Is your collar clean? Does your face look like it belongs to someone raised properly? Politeness is part of the uniform. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Pardon me. Not because people are kinder here, but because people are watching. Always. The neighbors. The vicar. The woman behind the bakery counter who has something to say about everything. Can sew. The body is taught to bow, to nod, to disappear at just the right moment. The posture matters. Straight backs, hands folded, eyes lowered only when necessary. Manners are not optional. They are survival. Even in private, the form is practiced. Elbows off the table, napkins folded, shoes left by the door. It's not about discipline, not entirely. It's about control. About keeping some thread of grace wrapped tightly around a life that frays easily at the edges. For the girls, hair is braided. If there's ribbon, it's reused. If there's none, string will do. The part is straight, the strands pulled tight. They do not complain. Tugging means love. Hair done carefully means someone still cares. The boys tuck their shirts in again, just to be sure. The waistbands don't hold well. Elastic is tired, buttons missing. But they make do. Everyone makes do. There's no perfume, just soap. The faint, almost floral, scent of it. Enough to smell like effort, enough to keep shame at bay. It clings to skin and lingers in scars. It is not sweetness. It is resolve. And then finally, when everyone is layered and laced and latched, there is a pause. A moment before the door opens. A collective breath, like actors before a play. Because stepping outside means stepping into scrutiny, into systems, into suspicion, but also into sun, into errands, into tiny joys waiting to be found. A market, stall with cheap oranges, a friend passing by, a patch of warmth on a brick wall where you can stand and pretend for a second that everything is enough. Dressed like this, they look composed, like people who have purpose, like citizens, like someone worth listening to. No one would guess how long the night was, how cold the floor felt this morning, how many tears were swallowed before the kettle even boiled. That's the power of a petticoat, of a corset, of a glove. They hold more than the body. They hold the self stitched tightly inside. Not safe, but seen. And so, with scarves tucked in, buttons checked, and shoulders squared, they open the door. The wind greets them first, as always. Then the street, then the day. And just like that, the rhythm begins again. The shuffle toward work, the polite nods, the invisible labor of appearing fine. But behind all that polish, behind all that posture, another story simmers, not one made of calluses, of lint, of breath held and released. A story that continues quietly now, as the father steps into the cold and begins the walk he takes each morning, not toward glory, not toward change, but toward obligation. The door closes with a soft wooden sigh, and the house exhales. For a brief moment, the air inside still holds his shape, the outline of him in the kitchen doorway, the scent of coal smoke woven into his coat, the mud his boots left by the threshold. Then it settles, and he is gone. Outside, the wind has teeth. It slips through scarf and sleeve like a thief, always searching for skin. The man doesn't flinch. His hands are buried in his pockets, his back slightly bent, not from age, but from the memory of weight long carried. He doesn't walk fast, but he walks with certainty. This street knows his pace, and he knows its uneven stones. He doesn't nod at the neighbor who's lighting her fire through the window. He doesn't wave at the boy who runs past with a crust of bread in his hand. These things are seen, not acknowledged. Mornings are for moving. There is no breakfast packed in brown paper, no flask of hot tea, just a tin lunch pail dented on. One side, carrying bread that's too thin and cheese that's already begun to sweat from the heat of the kitchen. It's enough. It has to be. Work is not far, but the walk stretches long. Not because of distance, but because of time. The street is quiet, except for the familiar clatter of horse hooves and the muttered curses of men urging reluctant wagons forward. A woman throws out dishwater, not noticing how close it comes to his boots. He steps around the puddle without comment. These small indignities are the rhythm of the road. The town is still waking. Curtains flutter. Doors creak open. A chimney begins to breathe, and he walks through it all without disturbing any of it. He's like smoke, present but unnoticed. His coat is patched at the elbows. His boots are too wide at the toe and too tight at the heel. Every few steps, he adjusts his scarf without looking down. His breath steams from his nose in rhythm with his stride. He is not late. He is never late, because to be late is to be questioned, and to be questioned is to be seen, and to be seen is to be suspected of laziness, of weakness, of slipping. So he marches. There's a pub he passes with the curtains still drawn and a pile of ash outside its door. He never drinks there, but he knows the barkeep by his whistle. Every morning, the same tune. This morning, it's missing. Perhaps the barkeep is ill, or perhaps for once the silence won. The factory is coming into view now, or perhaps the yard, the stables, the rail depot. It doesn't matter which. They all smell the same, of rust and sweat, of stale bread and damp canvas. Places built, not for comfort, but for extraction, of labor, of hours, of men. He pauses briefly at the gate, just a second to steel himself, not because he doubts, but because routine deserves respect. Then he steps forward, boots clicking against stone, and the sound disappears into the fog inside. No one speaks much. They nod or grunt or tilt a chin. The language of men who have nothing new to say, but who say it anyway, by showing up. Coats are hung, pails are stowed, hands are rubbed together once before being put to work. The whistle hasn't blown yet, but the work has begun all the same. He moves with rhythm, not elegance, but a kind of grace, the grace of someone who has memorized his role so well, he no longer needs direction. He lifts, he stacks, he sorts, he shovels. He fixes what's broken just enough to keep it running one more day. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. Time here doesn't tick. It groans. It stretches between the us. Whistles calls like taffy pulled too thin. Men don't check the clock. They feel it in the ache of their backs, in the dryness of their throats, in the way the light shifts through the cracks in the roof and lands on the same nail at the same hour each day. Lunch is short. There's no room to sit, so he leans against a wall, against a post, against whatever will carry the part of him that's tired the most. The bread is harder now, the cheese warmer, but he eats every bite. There's no conversation, only chewing, and the occasional cough that sounds worse than it did last week. He does not daydream. He doesn't have the luxury. But sometimes, only sometimes, his mind drifts to the sound of his child's laugh, to the softness of bathwater steam, to the way his wife touches his shoulder in passing, as if checking that he's still. Real. Then the whistle blows again, and the world sharpens. The rest of the day passes as most do, without drama, just motion, just purpose, just quiet survival. By the time the final bell rings, the air is thicker, with smoke, with tiredness, with something unspoken, like grief that hasn't yet found a name. The men don't talk as they leave. They don't have to. They've all lived the same day. The walk home is slower. His back is straighter now. Oddly enough, there's pride in completion. Not pride the way novels speak of it, but a quiet kind, the kind you tuck into your coat pocket and warm your hands against when no one's looking. The wind is softer. The sky is darker. The children are noisier now, flooding the streets with arguments in chalk and small victories. He nods once, perhaps at someone, perhaps at no one. And when he reaches his door, the same 3 steps greet him. The railings still rusted. The curtains still pulled slightly to the side. Inside, the house is lit, faintly, but enough. He wipes his boots before entering. He always does, not because anyone asks him to, but because it's the last thing he can control before the day ends. And then he steps inside, where warmth lives in teacups and in glances and in the small relief of returning. He doesn't speak right away. No one does. The house accepts him. The chair sighs beneath him. And somewhere, not far off, a child begins to hum. The march is over. Until tomorrow. Monday is not a day. It is a sound. It begins before the sun rises, with buckets thudding onto the floor, with the rattle of iron tools dragged out from beneath the stairs, with the low wooden groan of the washboard meeting the tub again. A sound like sighing, like surrender. In the Edwardian home, Monday means washing. Not the light kind, not the delicate sort, but full lunged labor. Oiling, wringing, scrubbing until fingers go red, and the room fills with steam, so thick it becomes a second ceiling. No. One sleeps late on washing day, The very walls know what's coming. They brace themselves. The kettle, already tired from the weekend, is pressed back into service. It boils not for tea, but for linens. The biggest pot in the house, the one reserved for soup and sickness, is filled with water and placed on the stove, hissing, angry. The clothes wait in piles, sorted roughly by color, but not by hope. Nothing white stays white for long. The children know to stay quiet. Their tasks are small today, carrying buckets, fetching pegs, stirring the ash bucket to check if there's enough lye for the whites. But the atmosphere is solemn. Even laughter feels out of place, like a whistle at a funeral dot in the corner. Of the kitchen stands the tub, not the one for bathing. This one is for punishment, for penance, for the week's worth of mud, sweat, coal dust, gravy, tears, and milk spills that cling to every shirt and apron. Like memory dot, the mother rolls her sleeves. Her hands already ache, though she hasn't yet begun. She begins with the collars, the necklines that catch everything and forgive nothing. She scrubs them against the ribbed surface of the board with a bar of soap that's more air than leather. The rhythm is not rushed, but relentless. Scrub, dip, wring, repeat. The water darkens quickly. She changes it only when absolutely necessary. Heat is not endless. Fuel is expensive. Effort is not. Steam rises like ghosts from the pot. The room becomes something else. Not a kitchen, not a home, but a chamber of persistence. The floor grows wet. No one notices. Outside, the sky is clear. A gift, maybe. Or a trick, but it means the lines can be strung early. From window latch to back fence, from nail to hook. Sheets first, heavy, unwieldy, like hanging clouds. Then shirts, then dresses, then underthings. Pegs are in short supply, so corners are shared. One pin must hold 2 garments, sometimes 3. The clothesline dips under the weight. A single gust of wind turns the whole yard into a field of flapping flags, white, gray, striped, and worn. They slap each other like siblings in a dream. The air smells cleaner now, though not clean. And through all this, the mother hums. Tune no one taught her, not cheerful, not mournful, just present. It moves through the steam and over the bucket's rim, and lands softly on the floor like a dropped rag. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below, and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The washboard grows warm under her hands. The soap stings cuts she doesn't have time to tend. The room spins slowly, like a carousel where no one smiles. She remembers her own mother, bent over a similar board, with the same crease in her back and the same song on her lips. She wonders if her daughter will sing it too. There's no glamour here, no perfume, no luxury, but there is discipline. There is pride in sending your children to school without stains, in folding your husband's shirt so the worn collar is less visible, in knowing that you've faced the mountain of fabric and brought it low. Washing is not just for cleanliness. It is for appearances, for reputation, for respect. Because in this world, people will forgive hunger, but they will not forgive a dirty hem dot. The children help hang the smaller things, socks, handkerchiefs, a cloth doll's dress that had to be washed after it fell in the fireplace soot. Pegs, clamped tight, hands stretched high, fingers frozen, and still the sky holds. A small mercy. The backyard, narrow and crooked, becomes a gallery of effort. Clothes sway like stories. That shirt with the red stitch? That was from the cough that wouldn't leave. Those trousers with the missing button? Sewn shut after father caught them on a fence nail. The tea towel with the burn? No one speaks of that night. Every item tells the truth. Every wrinkle holds a memory. By midday, the boiling stops. The fire is tired. The mother, too. Her arms throb. Her knees protest. But the final shirt is hung, The final sock is squeezed. The line bows like a violin string, singing in the wind. The kitchen is chaos. Water pooled beneath the table. Soap flakes on the stove. Steam on the windows. And yet there is peace. The kind that only follows storm knot inside. She pours herself the last of the morning's tea. Lukewarm. Slightly gray from ash in the air. But it tastes like pause. Like victory, however small. She wipes her hands on a towel that should have been part of the wash but wasn't. There's always one thing left behind. A napkin. A child's sleeve. A rag buried in the mop bucket. It will wait its turn. The sun shifts across the yard. The clothes dry slowly, then all at once. A sheet flaps. Loose and must be caught. A sock is gone, no matter. One always goes. The wind is greedy. As evening tiptoes in, the clothes are taken down, folded with care, stacked into baskets too small for the weight. They'll be sorted later, repaired where needed, laid on beds like promises. The house smells now of soap and steam and skin. The mother's back aches. Her hair is damp. But the world feels cleaner, somehow. Not entirely, not deeply, but enough to sleep in sheets that feel less heavy. Enough to tuck children in beneath blankets that smell of sky. Enough to sit by the fire, close her eyes, and hear silence again. Washing day is done. And tomorrow brings a different task, a different burden, where heat becomes enemy and soot dances across every surface, where the fire is both salvation and stain, because coal waits in the scuttle, and dust waits in the corners. The fire is already burning when the morning begins, though it hardly gives enough heat to brag about. It sits low in the grate, smoldering like an old man muttering to himself. The iron stove clicks softly, expanding in the hush of dawn. The room smells of ash and boiled linen. Again, the coal scuttle stands by the hearth like a loyal soldier, chipped and blackened. It is never full enough. Coal is rationed, not by the government, but by the purse, by the winter, by the whisper of worry in a mother's head as she pours the last few chunks into the fire and wonders how long they'll last. Coal is warmth. Coal is black fingers. Coal is floors that never stay clean. No matter how many times they're scrubbed. The children are told to keep their shoes by the door, but they never do. They forget, or they're in a rush. Or maybe they just want to leave a trace of themselves behind in a house that asks for quiet. Either way, footprints bloom across the floor like small rebellions. Gray, smudged, impossible to ignore. The brush comes out. Always the brush. Its bristles are worn, splayed at the edges like a tired dandelion. The mother doesn't complain. She dips it in the bucket and gets to work. The water is murky from the start. It always is, from yesterday's mop, from the grit that lives in the cracks, from the ghosts that cling to every corner. She starts near the stove, where the dust settles thickest. Her hands move without thought, back and forth, small circles, never fast, but never stopping. She's not cleaning so much as negotiating with the dirt. You stay in your place, and I'll stay in mine. The cloth is rinsed again and again, wrung out until it drips onto the already wet floor. Knees ache. The smell of soap lingers, dulled by the sharper sting of coal. And still she scrubs. The fire crackles behind her. Its warmth never reaches her back. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. Upstairs, a child sneezes. Dust in the blankets, perhaps, or the air, or the memories. The mother doesn't stop scrubbing. She hums something tuneless, a rhythm, not a melody. It keeps the brush moving. It keeps her from thinking about the corners she can't reach, the stains that won't lift, the coal that's running low, and the windows too thin to keep the cold out. The irony isn't lost. that the very thing that keeps them warm is what stains the walls, the clothes, the lungs. That comfort comes with a price paid in grime. That fire is both blessing and burden. She remembers when they tried wood instead, for 1 month, when the coalmen didn't come. The fire spat and hissed, barely holding. The floors were cleaner. Yes, but the children shivered through the nights, and the stew never quite boiled. They went back to coal the moment they could. Some dirt, it seems, is worth it. The broom is next. Long-handled, bristled with straw. She sweeps what's left into a pan already half full with the remains of yesterday's warmth. Ash flakes, soot, flecks, crumbled crumbs. The pan tips into the bin outside, where even the air smells like smoke. The floor looks clean now, though it isn't. Not really. There's always more dust. In the cracks, beneath the stove. In the curtains no one can afford to wash too often. But it looks clean. And that, sometimes, is enough. There's pride in that illusion. Because when the neighbor stops by, unannounced, always she'll see a swept floor and a glowing stove and think they're managing. She won't see the raw skin beneath the sleeves, the red eyes, the shoulders slumped from 1,000 scrubbings. But she'll see a polished kettle and smell soap on the air, and she'll nod politely, as if to say, "We see you trying. We respect the effort." The children return from school, boots clumping. One forgets to wipe them. Mud streaks across the door. Clean slate of the kitchen floor. The mother doesn't shout. She just looks. And the child lowers their eyes, removes the boots, places them properly by the door. The brush will come out again later. It always does. Some houses give up. Let the dust win. Let the coal spread unbothered. But not this one. Not yet. Because there is still dignity in polished shoes, in wiped tables, in washed floors. Even if the polish is cracked, the table warped, the floorboard splintered dot, especially then. The father returns, carrying coal under his fingernails and the silence of a long day. He steps carefully, not to undo the morning's work. She notices, doesn't say a word, but she places a clean cloth beside his chair, and he uses it to wipe the edge of his cup before sipping his tea. That's what manners look like when there's no money left. Cleanliness is not about being better than others. It's about showing the world and yourself that you haven't disappeared, that you still take up space, that you still matter enough to wipe away what the world tries to leave on you. A guest may never see the bruises, or the hunger, or the rent overdue, but they will see the swept floor, the shined spoon, the careful folding of the hand towel. And, for a moment, that's the only story that matters. Later, when the children are asleep, the mother will run the cloth over the floor one last time. Not because it needs it, but because she does. The fire will be down to embers, the coal nearly gone. A room will be quiet except for the soft drag of fabric across wood dot, and in that silence, something like peace dot, the kind that rises not from wealth, but from repetition. From doing the same small task again and again, because it keeps the chaos from winning. Because sometimes a clean floor is the only thing that can't be taken from you. And with that quiet victory underfoot, we tiptoe now into another part of the home, into spaces lower than the floorboards, into hallways walked in slippers, not shoes, into lives lived behind doors with no names, because while some rise and scrub, others serve and disappear. Downstairs isn't always beneath your feet. Sometimes it's just a hallway away, through a door that doesn't quite close, behind a curtain. No one ever thinks to draw back, but the people who live and work in that space, the help, as they're called, know every creak of the upstairs floorboards, every sigh of the kettle, every silence too long to be ignored. Servants move like weaned, present, necessary, but unnoticed. In an Edwardian home where they can be afforded, even barely, their presence is not announced by voice or invitation. It's heard in the clink of breakfast dishes already laid, the shine of boots that weren't shined yesterday, the fire that somehow lit itself before the master stirs. Their day begins earlier, always earlier. A whisper before dawn, a scratch of matches on kindling, the thud of coal being fed to the stove in the dimmest blue light of morning. They do not speak unless spoken to. They do not question, only carry out. But between them, a quiet language passes, eyes that warn of a bad mood upstairs, a raised eyebrow that means the mistress broke another cup, a nod toward the larder that says there's one less apple than yesterday, and no one wants to be blamed. It's a language, without grammar but full of meaning. One glance can save hours. One pause can prevent shame. In large houses, there are bells, a row of small dangling wires that quiver and ring with each pull from above. But in modest homes, there is no bell, just expectation, just timing. The maid knows when tea must be ready, when the coats should be brushed, when the youngest child will cry because the porridge is too hot and no one will scold her for it. The kitchen is the safe place, warm, low-ceilinged, full of movement. Pots hang on crooked nails. A cat dozes near the stove, earning her keep with lazy loyalty. The air smells of yeast and onions, and the faint ghost of something burnt days ago that no one had time to scrub away. The girl who works here wears plain clothes, but they're neat. Her apron is patched, her shoes pinch. She hums to herself while scrubbing, not for joy, but for rhythm. And in that rhythm, a kind of power. The family upstairs may never see what she does. How she beats the rugs with a strength they wouldn't expect. How she knows where the drafts come in and plugs them with folded rags. How she saves the heel of the bread to make toast for herself, but only after everyone else has eaten. She moves quietly, because that's what's required. But quiet isn't the same as invisible. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The boy in the yard, the one who fetches coal, mends fences, walks the neighbor's dog. When asked, he knows the same silence. His fingers are always grubby, his smile too ready, his posture a little too practiced. He is taught not just how to serve, but how to vanish. But even in vanishing, there is skill. He listens to footsteps, to know who's coming. He folds the newspaper just the way the master prefers. He notices that the good coat wasn't taken today, which means there's bad news, or a sick friend, or just not enough money for formality. In houses where class divides are whispered, not declared, the line between servant and family is both blurry and sharp. There is a respect. There is a dependence. There is affection that dares not name itself. A biscuit left out by accident becomes an unspoken gift. A blanket not folded becomes a warning. A cough heard at night becomes a secret that will be kept. And still, they serve, not just meals or firewood or errands, but the whole fragile illusion of comfort, of order, of grace. They are the ones who smooth the corners, close the drawers, tidy the shoes, who know how to clean without making noise, and how to leave without being remembered. But they remember. Every cruelty, soft, cold, small. Every kindness, rare, warm, weighty. A thank you whispered once in the pantry. A letter never answered. A look of disdain over spilled milk. They hold it all. Not in bitterness, but in truth. Because behind every polished floor is a bent back. Behind every cup of tea, a pair of burned fingers. Behind every starched collar, a woman who rises before the light and rests only after the dishes are dry and the fire is low. There is pride. Here too, even in silence. Especially in silence, because no one thanks them. And still they rise. No one sees the labor. And still it's done. No one asks if they're tired. And still they wait. Sometimes, late at night, the maid tiptoes through the parlor, fluffing cushions that were never sat on, rearranging flowers to hide the wilt. The house sleeps, but she doesn't. Not yet. She places a kettle on the stove. Not for them. For herself. A small cup, sipped in solitude, before the next day begins again. She doesn't dream of escape. She dreams of stillness. Of a morning where the fire lights itself, where no one calls her name, where she can be barefoot in her own kitchen and not worry about crumbs. But until then, she wipes the crumb off someone else's table. She folds the laundry. She brushes the stairs. She buttons the smallest child's coat and gently tells them their hair is just fine. Because this is what she knows. This is what she does. And somewhere, in the dark spaces between floors, her story hums quietly, carried. Not by books, but by the steam from her teacup. And now, we follow the quiet back upstairs, to the hands of the children, who work in smaller ways, but carry weight all the same. They dust, they fetch, they polish. And in between the chores, they steal slivers of laughter. For this is not just a home of labor, but of childhood too, muted, yes, but still breathing. They are not idle. The children in this Edwardian house do not sleep in. They do not wait to cartoons or orange juice or the luxury of boredom. They wake to boots too tight, porridge too thin, and a list of things that must be done before the day is allowed to begin. They know what must be swept, what must be folded, what cannot be forgotten, even once, and no one tells them twice. The smallest girl pulls on wool socks with holes at the toes, then shuffles across the chilly floor to shake the ashes from the grate. Her fingers, still pink from bathwater 2 nights ago, are black again within minutes. She wipes them on her apron and doesn't mention it. Her brother is already at the shoe rack, brushing dried mud from the heels of their father's boots. He works quickly, carefully, not because he loves the task, but because he knows how quiet the house gets when things aren't done on time. That silence that isn't really silence, just a pause thick with disappointment. They know the weight of unfinished chores. It doesn't crush, not all at once. It accumulates, like soot, like dust. There's a rhythm to the work, a kind of music only they can hear. Not sweet, not cruel, just steady. Dishes must be dried, not just washed. Windows wiped, even when it's raining outside. Bread sliced evenly, even when the loaf has gone stale and the knife pulls to the side. They learn balance in the kitchen, geometry at the table, and physics. By carrying too much at once, because it saves steps. And yet, between all that labor, they find time to breathe. The girl, now sweeping the hearth, sings softly under her breath. The song has no words, just vowels and melody passed from ear to heart and back again. Her brother steals the last corner of bread and shares it with the cat, who eats it with a suspicious squint, as if expecting more. They grin. For a moment, they are not workers, not helpers. Just small souls caught in a world too big, too structured, too cold. And then the bell rings. Not an actual bell, but a voice, a look, a shift in air that says it's time to get back to it, because the brass needs polishing. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The boy gathers the tin of polish and the soft cloth, careful not to use the rag meant for windows. They look the same, but his mother can tell the difference, and so can he. He kneels at the hearth and begins to rub, small circles, just like he was taught. The metal resists at first. Then it yields, revealing its shine slowly, like a secret. That needs coaxing. He breathes on it now and then, just to speed the process. He does not rush Dot meanwhile. His sister is brushing the entryway rug. The bristles catch her fingers. She blinks, but keeps going. The rug has patterns, faded now, but still noble. She thinks of it as a sort of magic carpet. If she were lighter, braver, less needed, perhaps it would carry her away, but she knows better. Rugs don't fly. Not these Dot by midday. They've already done more than many children will all week. Not just tasks, but labor. Bone-deep, finger-staining, shoulder-aching labor. And they do it without question. Not because they are obedient. Because they are aware. They know what happens when things fall apart. They've seen the cracks in the plaster widen. The corner of the door that doesn't quite close anymore. The sharpness in a parent's voice when bills arrive with bad news. They work because it helps. Because it fills space that might otherwise echo. Because when their hands are busy, the world feels less uncertain. And in between, they steal moments of joy. A skipping rope made from an old clothesline. A paper doll cut from yesterday's newspaper. Game of counting chimney pots through the upstairs window, whispering bets on which ones will still be standing next winter. Their laughter is not loud, but it's there, threaded between the chores like a ribbon around something fragile. They help cook. Peel potatoes with knives too big for their hands. Stir gravy until their arms ache. They set the table with plates that don't match. They fold napkins even when no guests are expected. They carry firewood, water, coal, messages. They wipe their own tears and each other's noses. And through it all, they grow. Not taller, necessarily, but wiser, quieter, sturdier. They learn to read moods like weather, to know when to speak and when to vanish, to understand that sometimes a task, even a small one, is what stands between calm and chaos. At night, when the house goes quiet and the chores are done, they don't bounce on beds or whisper for hours. They slip beneath blankets with aching legs and full hearts, because they've helped. They've mattered. And as the fire fades and the floor cools, a soft rustle in the hall, the boy adjusting his father's boots for the morning, making sure they're in just the right place. No one sees it, but it's done. The floor is swept, the fire's been fed, the tin polish put away, and the cat is asleep on a chair too high for her. Tomorrow, it begins again. The chores, the humming, the weight of small hands carrying the world. But for now, the only sound is breath, steady, shared, and the quiet satisfaction of a home that still holds together, thanks in part to the smallest shoulders in the room. And now, as the floorboards still and the children sleep, we drift toward the table once more, where bread is broken not with joy, but with reverence. For the day's labor earns no feast, but something more modest, more sacred. A meal. Dinner in this Edwardian household is not an event. It is not grand. It is not loud. It does not arrive in courses or with laughter that echoes from a chandelier. It arrives quietly, steadily, like everything else in this house, with the scraping of a knife across bread that's gone dry around the edges, and a mother counting slices before anyone lifts a hand. There is no tablecloth. It was washed last week and hasn't dried since. The table is wooden, scarred, and patient. It's where shoes are mended, where lessons are copied, where babies have been changed, and arguments have been passed back and forth like salt. And now, as the sky turns the color of cooling ash, it becomes a dinner table. Bread first. Always bread. Sliced not thick, never thick, but wide enough to trick the stomach, to feel full before the second bite. The crusts are tougher than they were yesterday. A child must chew longer. No one complains. Next, butter, or what passes for it. Soft only in summer, and never generous. It's spread with the back of the knife, not to cover, but to suggest. Just enough for the bread not to seem lonely. Sometimes there's dripping, fat saved from a roast 2 Sundays ago. If there is, it's spooned out like treasure. Pale, waxy, glorious. The children perk up. The father nods once, slowly. The mother pretends not to notice their small smiles. There is tea, of course, lukewarm, weak, poured from a pot stained brown on the inside and chipped on the rim. It tastes like habit, like home, like something that pretends to be stronger than. It is. No one speaks much. Words are rationed to. The father chews with his hands folded on the table, elbows off, back straight. He doesn't ask about the day. He already knows. The children eat with small movements, as if worried the food might notice and disappear. The mother cuts the last heel of bread in two and places each piece gently, deliberately, in front of the youngest. That is love here. Not hugs, not kisses, but sacrifice measured in crumbs. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. Sometimes there are pickles. Sharp, vinegary ones in a jar that once held jam. They're past. Around in silence, each person taking only one, their faces tightening briefly with the sting. A rare taste. A memory of summer packed in brine. On Fridays, if the week has been kind, there's fish. Not fried. Not wrapped in paper. Just a piece, boiled and quiet, served beside potatoes mashed with salt and scraped with a spoon. The kind of meal that fills the stomach and quiets the soul, if not with joy, then with warmth. But tonight there is only bread and butter and the last of the tea. The table creaks as someone shifts their weight. A boot nudges another beneath the surface. A cough, a whisper, the crackle of fire just beginning to give up for the evening. The mother stands to fetch more, not food, there is no more food, but plates to be washed, napkins to be shaken, crumbs to be swept. The meal is over in minutes. It does not linger, it does not echo, but still, it matters, because it gathers them, because even a bare table means no one is alone. The plates are cleared without fuss, the children help. One holds the bowl while the other scrapes with a spoon. Not a scrap is wasted. Not because of thrift, but because of reverence. Food in this house is not background. It is centered. The water for washing is already in the basin. Gray from breakfast, cold from time. The plates are dipped, swirled, dried, and stacked. The cupboard door clicks gently as each one is returned to its place. There is no dessert. But there is the quiet gift of having eaten, of not going to bed with only air in the belly. Outside, a cart rumbles by. The cat meows, pretending hunger. She has already been fed, but no one denies her a crust. The children ask no questions. They understand without explanation that tomorrow's dinner might look the same, or less, or if fortune smiles, a bit more. The mother wipes the table once. More, not just for cleanliness, but for ceremony. A clean table is a full stop at the end of a long sentence. It tells the house, this part is done. You made it through. She leaves the cloth folded neatly on the chair. In the corner, the father begins to mend something. A belt, maybe, or the leg of a stool. His tools are quiet, his breath steady. The fire blinks and flickers and whispers its own lullaby. The children settle onto cushions by the hearth. A book is fetched. The words are soft, worn smooth from retelling. They do not always listen. But the sound of reading, a voice without need, of sentences meant only to soothe, wraps around them like the blanket that's too small for both, but is shared anyway. No one is full, but no one is starving. And in that narrow space between hunger and satisfaction, there is peace. There is a kind of nourishment that bread cannot give, that butter cannot carry, that tea cannot steep. It's found in shared silence. In crumbs divided. evenly dotted eyes that glance across a bare table and say, "We are still here. Tomorrow's loaf will be smaller. Or maybe harder. Or maybe not there at all, Dot, but tonight it was enough, Dot." And now, with dishes dried and the kettle emptied, the family turns away from the table. Not toward celebration, but toward something quieter. Something stitched into the fading. Hours like a seam in an old coat. Dot, rest. Dot. At first, the sewing basket must come out. The lamp must be lit. The needle must be threaded. Dot, because even after dinner, the work continues. Gentle, precise, and deeply human. Dot, the day begins to lean. Afternoon doesn't fall quickly here. It slouches, sighs, and finally settles across the kitchen floor like an old quilt laid down by hand. The light comes in on an angle now, catching the dust in the air and turning it to gold for a moment or two. A child follows it with their eyes, watching particles drift and spin like stars. Caught in syrup. Dot, this is the hour when time softens. The worst of the day is over. The fires are steady, the children quieter, the boots drying by the hearth. But the work, of course, has not stopped. A lamp is lit in the corner, though the sun still hangs in the window. Its glow is not needed yet, but it will be soon. Better to have it ready. The wick trimmed earlier, the oil just enough. A basket appears from beneath a chair, woven, slightly cracked at one corner. Inside, cloth scraps, coils of thread, dull needles tucked into felt, like tiny sleeping soldiers. A thimble that's seen generations. A pair of shears with a stiff hinge. This is not a collection of hobbies. It is a kit for survival. Dot, the mother sits, slowly, easing into the chair, as if her joints have learned to brace before she tells them. 2. Her hands find the fabric automatically. She doesn't need to sort through it. She knows what's inside. She knows what's torn, what's coming undone, what needs patching before it's noticed. On her lap, a shirt with a fraying cuff, the same one her son wore to school, the same one he'll need again tomorrow. The thread is knotted, the needle pushed through. A small movement, then another. The same over and over, steady and slow, like the ticking of the clock that doesn't quite keep time, but no one has the heart to replace. She doesn't so quickly. There's no point. There are no visitors coming, no presentation to prepare for. This is not about looking new. It's about looking intact, holding the seams together long enough to carry them through another week. A girl joins her with a basket of her own. Not out of duty, not quite. She brings socks, hole-riddled and damp. She wants to learn. She wants to help. But more than anything, she wants to be close. To the rhythm, to the quiet, to the love that hides in every stitch. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. Outside, the shadows stretch longer. The wind picks up just enough to rattle the loose glass in the window pane. No one looks up. The world outside has little to offer them at this hour. Inside, the needle glints. The thread pulls tight. The sock begins to resemble something whole. Again, the boy, older now, sits on the floor with a boot in his lap. The sole is cracking. He knows it. He's hoping it holds another week. Maybe 2. He rubs wax along the leather, pressing it in with his thumb the way his father showed him. Not a repair, but a prayer. The mother moves on to a dress. A hem that's fallen. She tucks the edge and pins it straight, then begins again. Her fingers ache now. The cold makes them swell, then stiffen, but the muscle memory carries her through. This is not art. This is continuity. The cat curls on a nearby chair, one paw over her face. The clock ticks unevenly. The house, though silent, hums with small labors. Sometimes there is conversation. Soft, threadbare. Remarks about the coming cold. About the neighbor's daughter, who now walks with a limp. About a letter that arrived. 2 doors down, too thick to be good news. But mostly, there is sewing. The mother shifts the basket to find another patch. She pulls out a scrap from an old curtain, faded blue with a floral print now barely visible. She holds it for a moment, longer than necessary. Her thumb traces a corner of it, slow and thoughtful. Then she cuts it into a square and begins to stitch it onto the elbow of a jumper. Nothing is wasted here. Not thread, not fabric, not memory. Every piece of cloth carries a past life. A dress from a dance, long forgotten. A pair of trousers worn during a storm. A curtain from a room that used to belong to someone no one talks about anymore. They are all repurposed, reborn into usefulness. Because new things are rare, and mending is more than economy. It's defiance. Against time? Against where? Against the idea that things are disposable. A repaired sleeve means more than a new coat ever could. The sun disappears, finally. The lamp begins to matter. Its light pools over the sewing, over the careful fingers, over the bent heads. It turns the room into something warm, safe. The needle glints more brightly now. The thread shows its color. The patch takes shape, and with it, so does the evening. The boy sets the boots aside. He is done for today. His hands smell of wax and leather. He stretches his fingers and yawns. The cat doesn't stir. The girl finishes her sock. A single stitch, slightly crooked, but the hole is gone. She shows it to her mother. The woman smiles, not with her lips, but with her eyes. Well done. The silence says, well done. The baskets are closed. The lamp turned down. The mended things folded and stacked, ready for another day. Outside, the wind settles. The house grows still, and tomorrow, the shirt will be worn again. The jumper will be warm. The socks will hold. No one outside this home will know. No one will praise the evenness of a patch. No one will thank the needle or the thread. But inside, a quiet satisfaction that the day was not wasted. That something broken is now whole again. And now, with the shadows gone and the fire dimmed, the house prepares for another kind of labor, learning. Because for Edwardian children, even rest comes with a pencil. And the ink in the classroom is always colder than the air. The bell doesn't chime. It clatters, sharp and thin, like a spoon struck against a rusted rail. It echoes across cobblestones and through damp alleyways, bouncing off chimneys and the backs of coal carts. A sound not of welcome, but of warning. It means now. No matter the weather, no matter the feet still being laced into boots, no matter the hands still curled around the warmth of the fire, the children rise. There is no carriage, no breakfast spread, just the last bite of cold toast and a satchel snapped shut with fingers still pink from washing. The books inside are worn, covers curling, pages ink-blotted by older hands. But they are treasured, not for their stories, but for what they promise, a chance, a sliver of something else. Scarves are tied, too tight and too fast. Coats buttoned with buttons that don't match. Gloves? Sometimes, but often lost or shared or mended into unrecognizable shapes. They carry their belongings close, not for safety, but because they know how easily things vanish. The walk is not short. It winds through streets still sleeping, past shop windows too fogged to peer into, past brick walls scrawled with chalk and soot. Their boots slap against stone, steady as a drumbeat. One stumbles, rights themselves, keeps going. The wind is sharp this morning. It cuts without blood. They arrive at the gate as the bell rings again. Not late, not early, just on time. The building is squat and plain, a rectangle of brick and expectation. No banners, no warmth, just a door too heavy for one child to open alone. So they push together, shoulder to shoulder, without speaking. Inside, the air is colder than it was outside. The walls hold on to damp. The windows sweat. The inkwells, lined along each desk, have frozen overnight. The ink is a skin of ice, blue-black, and brittle. It must be thawed by breath, by friction, by time. They sit without ceremony. Desks, carved with initials, smoothed by years of elbows. The benches squeak. The room smells of dust and wet wool and discipline. The teacher enters. No greeting, just a nod. The silence tightens. The first lesson is arithmetic. Slates out. Chalk gripped. Hard. No ink yet, not until fingers warm. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. The questions are called out like commands. No child dares not answer. The ones who know respond. Quickly. The ones who don't look straight ahead, praying not to be seen. A boy fumbles a number. The silence afterward is heavier than the cold. The teacher writes on the board. The chalk breaks. No one flinches. Next comes penmanship. The inkwells have softened. Mostly. The nibs scratch across paper with uneven grace, forming loops and lines that will never be admired. Neatness is not praised. Mess is punished. Girls sit straighter. Boys twitch more. Every cough, every sneeze, every shifting foot is heard. There is no carpet to catch the sound. The girl in the second row forgets her cue. She is made to write it again and again until it looks proper. Until her wrist aches and the paper bleeds. They break for a few minutes. Not recess, just air. In the yard, bare ground. No swings, no games. Just space to breathe and shake. Out fingers. They gather in small clusters, coats buttoned to the chin, hands tucked into sleeves. Conversation is low. If it comes at all. Someone shares a sweet. Someone else falls and hides the tear in their stocking. The bell rings again. Back inside. History now. Names of kings. Dates of wars. Nothing about the people who mended clothes, or scrubbed floors, or rang the bell in the first place. But the children listen. They memorize. They know the names won't save them, but forgetting might shame them. The girl in the front whispers an answer too softly. She is made to stand. She does not cry. Her lips pressed together like a seam sewn tight. By midday, hunger has arrived. But lunch is brief and plain. Bread, an apple if luck is kind, sometimes just scraps. They eat at their desks, quietly. No sharing, no bartering. A boy pockets a piece for later. No one notices. Or maybe they do, but choose not to speak. The final lesson is scripture. Verses read aloud, slow and steady. The same ones their parents know by heart. The same ones stitched into every curtain and echoed in every quiet prayer. The girl reads clearly. The boy stumbles. A pause. A correction. The lesson continues. When the final bell rings, no one cheers. There is no scramble for coats, no rush of feet. Just movement, slow, relieved, practiced. They file out as they entered, in silence. Or near enough. Back into the gray. Back into the world that doesn't ask for their handwriting, but still demands their obedience. The teacher remains behind. The classroom empties. The ink redash freezes. At home. The boots come off. The satchels are hung. The slates are wiped clean for tomorrow. The parents do not ask what was learned. They ask only if they behave. And the children nod. Because they did. Because they always do. Even when it's cold. Even when they forget a letter. Even when they Chalk breaks and the answer escapes. They try. They sit in silence and let the cold press into their bones like knowledge. They breathe through frozen ink and broken pencils. They walk back home with the same weight in their shoulders and a bit more in their hearts. And as the fire glows in the hearth and supper is nearly ready, they open their books once more, not to study, just to touch the pages, to feel something that isn't stone or silence or ashdot. And in that soft moment, they are more than pupils, more than bodies in a row. They are the future, shivering, smudged, but still showing up. Tomorrow. The ink will freeze again, and still they'll write. The evening settles slowly, not like a blanket, not soft and warm, but like dust, quiet and constant. It drifts into the corners of the house, into the folds of coats hung by the door, into the space between footsteps on the stairs. It is the kind of evening that doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, and everyone knows what. That means dinner. The table is cleared of sewing things, of schoolwork, of crumbs from earlier. It is wiped once with a damp cloth, which leaves behind streaks of clean water that will dry unevenly. The chairs are pulled into place, not pushed, not scraped, just gently moved as if even they are tired. There's a hush now, not from reverence, not even from exhaustion, but from routine. Silence here is not absence. It is presence with the volume turned down. The meal is prepared with hands that have already worked too hard today. It is not extravagant. Stew may be thin, but warm. Potatoes boiled and mashed with a wooden spoon that has been in the drawer longer than the children have been alive. Bread on the side, unless it's gone. Salt if there's enough. Always hope, whether it fits or not, each bowl is placed with care, not with flair, not with flourish. Just quietly in front of each seat, with the same tired gentleness that lays a child into bed. They sit, the father at one end, the mother at the other, the children between, in the order they've always known. The chairs are not matched. One leans slightly, one wobbles. The youngest swings her feet, but stops when her sister gives her a glance. They begin with a murmur of thanks, spoken low and fast, not for anyone to hear, just to say they did. And spoons, metal against ceramic, slow at first, then steady. A rhythm that fills the room in place of conversation. No one speaks unless it's needed. A request for more bread, a cough, a warning about elbows on the table. Otherwise, they eat in silence. It isn't awkward. It isn't cold. It's just dinner. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. There is comfort in the quiet, in knowing no one expects anything more than chewing. No stories need to be told. No feelings need to be shared. The fire provides the only commentary, crackling and popping like a distant memory. The mother glances once at each child. She doesn't ask about school, not tonight. She knows the answer. She can see it in their shoulders, in the way their heads droop, in the speed at which they eat. The boy with the sore wrist from writing. The girl who scraped her knee and didn't cry. The father eats slowly, carefully. He breaks his bread into equal parts, dips it into the stew, and watches the steam rise. He does not look up. He does not need to. This meal is not for bonding. It is for filling, for softening the edge of hunger, just enough that sleep might come. More easily. The youngest spills a few drops, not much, just a trace down the front of her blouse. She looks around, bracing for a scolding, but no one speaks. The mother hands her a cloth without a word. The child wipes, nods, and continues. Outside, the sky turns from gray to blue-black. The windows fog. The lamp flickers. Inside. The bowls slowly empty. Not all at once, but by degrees, like the day itself, disappearing in quiet handfuls. Food is gone. No one asks for more. There isn't any. The pots are scraped clean, the ladle set aside. The last crust passed to the father, who breaks it in two and hands the smaller half back to the child beside him. That is his version of affection. Sit for a moment longer. Not to talk, not to linger. But because moving feels heavier than staying. Then, one by one, they rise. The chairs scrape softly. The dishes are cleared. Not in a flurry, not as punishment, but as routine. Each person carries something: bowl, spoon, plate to the basin. They do not rush. They do not dawdle. They just do. The water for washing is warmed slightly, not too much, just enough to loosen the remnants. Soap is rubbed into cloth, not bubbles. The dishes are passed down the line: wash, rinse, dry, stack. It is a silent ballet, and every night it is performed the same. No applause, just completion. Afterward, the table is wiped again, this time with warm water, the cloth wrung tighter. The surface gleams faintly in the lamplight, not because it is polished, but because it is loved. In its own way. This table has seen arguments, prayers, a birth, a fever, a Christmas goose one year and a dry biscuit the next. It holds all of it, quietly, without judgment. Tonight, it holds the memory of stew, of bread, of quiet mouths and tired eyes. The children drift toward the fire now, not to play, just to sit, to warm toes, to let digestion and silence wrap around them like a second blanket. The parents share a look. It says, "We made it through another day." It says, "Tomorrow, again." Nothing more needs to be said. Dinner, in this. Home is not about joy. It's about presence. And silence, here, is not the absence of love. It is its form. And now, with bowls dried and table cleared, the room exhaling slowly around them, the night continues, not into merriment or music, but into memory. Because after the meals, when the fire burns low and the stories begin, it is not food that feeds the family anymore. It is imagination. The fire is low now. It no longer crackles. It murmurs. A slow, flickering breath, weaving shadows across the kitchen walls like ribbons of fading thought. The children sit near it, legs tucked beneath them, fingers curled around their own knees. Their eyes shine not from brightness, but from reflection. This is the gentlest part of the day. Not quite sleep, not quite wakefulness. A kind of hush that floats just above the floorboards, where imagination waits patiently to be invited in. Someone asks a question, quiet, uncertain. Tell us a story? Not a demand. A hope. The mother nods, as if she'd already been preparing the tale in her mind. The father leans back in his chair, arms folded, face unreadable but listening. The air smells of wool, of smoke, of tea grown cold in forgotten mugs. The cat shifts in her sleep. The house somehow leans into. The story begins, not with once upon a time. No, these stories begin in the way that's older than books and softer than rhyme. There was a girl, the mother says, who lived at the edge of the woods. And just like that, the chill of the wind outside no longer matters. The children lean closer, the fire painting red in their cheeks, the corners of the room folding in like pages. Her voice is slow, rhythmic, gentle as steam rising from a wash basin, each word draped carefully in silence before the next one lands. The girl in the story is always someone like them, barefoot, brave, small, but clever. She speaks to animals. She tricks giants. She finds things grown-ups have long forgotten. Talking birds, broken clocks that tell the future, keys to nowhere that unlock everything. The boy smiles. The youngest gasps at the twist. The eldest, though silent, listens hardest of all. And when a story turns dark, as stories must, when the girl is lost or frightened or cold, no one speaks. They feel it, in their own hands, in their own histories, because cold is no stranger here. Because being small and unseen isn't a fantasy. It's memory. The tale spins on. Not long, not short. Just enough until the girl finds her way home. Until the forest gives up its secrets. Until the wind sighs in peace. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. There is no applause. Just breath released. Shoulders softened. Heads lean slightly to the side. A log shifts in the fire. Sparks rise like punctuation. The cat opens one eye, then closes it again. Then comes the second kind of story, the kind that costs a penny. From the boys. Coat pocket, he pulls a scrap of newspaper. Folded and folded again until it fits beneath a button. It's a penny tale. Cheap, dramatic, ink still smudging fingers. A serialized adventure meant to thrill and distract. He reads aloud. The words are different than his mother's. Louder, faster. There are ships, swords, villains in disguises. The sentences stumble sometimes, but he carries them forward like a lantern. The youngest giggles. The eldest rolls her eyes, but listens all the same. The father pretends not to enjoy it, but his mouth twitches at the more ridiculous bits. These tales are gaudy and wild, filled with impossible escapes and unbelievable luck, but they're cherished. Because even the poor deserve adventure. Even soot-stained boots should, now and then, tread the decks of pirate ships and race through moonlit cities. The fire dims further. The room shrinks with it. Someone yawns. Someone else whispers, "Read?" The next part, but there's no time. Or rather, there is time, but not enough energy left to spend it. The penny tale is folded again. Returned to the pocket. Saved for tomorrow. The mother reaches for the fire iron. Nudges the log closer. Watches the sparks rise again. One touches her sleeve. She doesn't flinch. She's thinking maybe of stories she was told. Of tales her own mother murmured while sewing in the same chair. Of wolves that walked like men, and women who stitched. Spells into tablecloths. Or maybe she's thinking of nothing. Just resting in the soft echo of voices that, for once, do not ask anything of her. The children begin to shift. Limbs growing heavy. Eyes blinking slower. No one says, "Go to bed." Not yet. The fire must fade first. The stories must settle. Only then can sleep come. Invited, unhurried. The room, once filled with chores and cries and clatter, is now a cradle. Its walls hung with tiredness, not sorrow. The silence is not empty. It is full of stories still. Swirling through the smoke. The girl who tricked a beast. The boy who found a hidden door. The crew who sailed straight off the edge of the map. None of it is real. And all of it is true. Because truth, here, isn't about fact. It's about feeling. About what wraps around the heart when the rest of the world turns its face away. Stories told by firelight are stitched into memory like thread through cloth. They wear them like coats. Like armor. Like lullabies. And as the final ember breathes its last little glow, someone rises quietly and gathers the children, one by one. To the beds, to the blankets, to the dreaming. And now, as the stories sleep, the fire fades. Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow, the talies will return, folded in a pocket, mumbled through a smile, rising once more with the steam of morning tea. But tonight, we leave them here, warmed, heard, carried, because next we turn to another kind of ending, not in words, but in actions. To the gentle click of iron on cloth, to shirts laid out and goodbyes not spoken, only pressed into fabric. The house is quieter now, not the busy hush of afternoon or the playful murmur of bedtime stories, but the deep, settling silence that follows the last yawn. The fire has dropped to a faint glow, barely enough to see by. Most of the house is sleeping, but the mother is still awake. There's always something left to do. The iron waits on the stove, heating slowly. No cord, no switch, just metal warmed by flame, held over embers like an offering. It hisses when touched to the damp cloth, the sound like rain on a roof in early spring. She lays out the shirt. Her husband's, worn, but not yet threadbare. The collar has frayed again. The cuffs are tired, but it's clean, it's whole. And tomorrow, it must look crisp enough to be believed. The cloth over the table is thin, placed only to soften the blow of metal on wood. She presses the iron down, slowly, moves it in smooth, wide arcs, not rushing, not yet tired enough to sleep. There is rhythm in this. The iron lifts, breathes, settles. She repositions the shirt, flattens a fold, tugs the fabric back into shape. It will never be perfect, not anymore. But perfection isn't the goal. The goal is readiness, respect. The idea that when her husband steps into the cold tomorrow morning, his back will be straight and his sleeves will look like they belong to someone who matters. The steam rises. The room smells faintly of starch and smoke. Upstairs, the children shift in their beds. One coughs. Another murmurs. She doesn't check on them. She doesn't need to. She knows those sounds. None of them mean worry. On the chair beside her, another shirt waits. This one smaller. For her son. His first proper shirt. School days require it now. He's grown enough to button his own collar, though not without fumbling. She presses that 1-2 dot. The iron glides over the fabric like a lullaby, smoothing not just wrinkles, but everything that clung to the day. Ink smudges, sweat from running. Home, the faintest whiff of playground chalk. All ironed out. All forgiven. If you're enjoying this pace already, leave a soft like below, and subscribe if you'd like more nights like this. She reaches for the next. A blouse this time. Her daughter's. She presses the hem, then the sleeves, then the shoulders, pausing slightly at the neckline where a single button is loose. She mend it tomorrow. There's no time tonight. But the blouse will hang neatly in the morning light, and her daughter will feel that, the quiet care of it, stitched and pressed into place. Soft goodbyes live in these garments. Not spoken, but laid gently onto chairs, folded at the foot of the bed, waiting by the fire. When morning comes and the children stumble from sleep to slippers, they'll find their clothes warm, ready, whispering, "Go on now. I've done what I can." The last shirt is hers. It is simple, faded at the elbows. The one she wears under her dress when she walks to market. She does not iron it often. No one sees her closely enough to notice. But tonight, she presses it anyway, because tomorrow, she too must face the world. And dignity wears many forms. A polished shoe, a brushed sleeve, a blouse without creases. She finishes. The iron cools on a scrap of cloth. Its weight lingers on her wrist like the memory of a task. Now done. She pours the remaining hot water into the basin and wipes her hands dry on her apron. The table is cleared, the ironing cloth folded and returned to its drawer. The room, once again, belongs to silence. Outside, the wind has dropped. Even the trees seem asleep. She gathers the pressed garments, one by one, lays them carefully on the backs of chairs, sorted for morning. Father, son, daughter, self. No labels, just knowing. And then she pauses. She moves to the stairwell. Stands. For a moment at its base. Not climbing. Just listening. Upstairs, the breathing of her family fills the rooms. Light, steady, layered. She leans against the wall and closes her eyes. This, too, is part of the goodbye. Not because they are leaving forever, but because every morning is a kind of departure. Each child stepping out into a world she cannot fully protect them from. Each man walking toward a labor she cannot soften. Each girl entering a school where smiles do not always follow rules. So she presses their shirts. She makes the fabric hold them in her place. She gives them order in a world that bends too easily toward mess. In the morning, no one will thank her. They'll put on their clothes and rush out, toast half eaten, books half packed. And that's how she wants it, because the care is not for gratitude. It's for safety. It's for hope. It's for one small shield against the cold. And as she blows out the lamp and climbs the stairs, her own blouse draped over her arm, she leaves behind nothing but the faint scent of starch and the softest shape of love. The goodbyes are done. Tomorrow's battles are ready. And now, with nothing more to press and no more steam to rise, the house sinks deeper into stillness. Only the fire remains, low, loyal, glowing. And beyond that glow waits another quiet chapter, not of iron or thread, but of rest, of blankets that barely cover feet, of beds that squeak when dreams shift, of warmth not from flame, but from body, from breath, from the simple fact of staying.